You're listening to the Better 2 podcast with DM Needham. Hi, gang. Thanks for tuning into the Better 2 podcast. Today's show is going to be slightly different, like a couple episodes recently have been, where we really don't necessarily have a Better 2 moment to explore. Today's guest, Cordell, calls himself a dream coach. Now, you might be wondering what a dream coach is. Is that somebody who coaches you to go after your dreams? No, this is actually a dream coach who talks about how to maximize your time you're sleeping. We all dream. It's just we don't always remember them. And for some of us, like myself, I have dreams at times that have hidden messages that actually play out. And we're going to explore that in today's conversation, as well as how to take your dreams and harness the power to get what you want. So it should be an intriguing conversation. I hope you guys enjoy it and get something from it. So enjoy. Hi, Cordell. How are you doing?
Good morning, Donna. It's very nice to be here with you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. You, when you reached out, it was very intriguing because you're a dream coach. And a lot of people, when they think coach, they think, okay, waking hours. They think you must be coaching us toward our dreams. And in a roundabout way, you are, from what I read, but it's not the direct of, I'm your life coach that's going to help you go after your dreams. You're actually dealing with the dreams we have at night. Is that correct?
And you're right. It's a little bit of both. So the first premise is to teach people how to make the most use out of those 8 hours or so that we spend in bed every night, and particularly the 2 hours that we spend dreaming every night. So how to remember their dreams, how to intentionally set dream scenarios that they might have, how to not only recall their dreams, but really interpret their dreams. What's yearning to be expressed through them, and why is it coming through to them in dreams, particularly while our waking inner critic is shut down. And then as well to dive into things like lucid dreaming, how to become aware that you're dreaming within a dream. And from there, really understanding how we can do healing work through our dreams, how we can dive into beliefs, limiting beliefs or narratives that no longer serve us and release them, how we can do creativity work, and how we can prepare for waking life. And the practice of dream work really has a ripple effect into how we go through walking through our waking life every single day.
And I know you hear it quite often because I've heard it. I don't remember my dreams. I don't dream at night. I don't remember my dreams. And I know that that's not the case. We all dream at a certain point.
Yeah, everyone dreams roughly around 2 hours every single night if you're getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep. And so it's not whether we're dreaming, it's whether we're recalling our dreams. And many people, they subconsciously shut down their dreaming or their dream recall. And that's often because we pay attention to what we value in life. And what we value in life are usually those things that the people around us say we should value. And so if most of us didn't grow up in a household or in a culture where people were honoring their dreams, where people were talking about their dreams, then over time we just stop paying attention to them. But that's the great news, which is if we start paying a little bit of attention, if we put a little intentionality into our dream work, very quickly your dreams start coming flooding back to you. And that's fantastic, because if I could offer you 2 extra hours every single day for the rest of your life of lived experience, would you want it? Sure, everyone would. Now, it's not just 2 extra hours. These are 2 very special hours. These are 2 hours of non-ordinary consciousness. These are supra-consciousness hours. These are hours where we can enter limitless states, where we can enter imaginal realms, when we can do so much more than we can in our waking hours. And so a little bit of attention, intention will bring this aspect of our lived experience back to all of us.
Do you believe that people can connect on a different plane in their dreams with other people?
Yeah, I absolutely do. And here's the thing. No matter what I say or what you or I believe, there's no one right way to think about this, and no one can prove us right or wrong. And so there's something beautiful about our dream lives, which is ultimately that it's a mystery. For all of the technological advancements, for all of our societal advancements, we still don't know why we dream. We know there's emotional processing, we know there's memory consolidation, but where we go to, why it's happening, and what we do in that altered state is for us to explore, for us to imagine. And so, yeah, connecting to others in a dream state is something I've done before. And you can say, how do you know? Well, I've worked with other dream practitioners and other friends, and we've said, let's go meet in a dream. Okay, where are we going to meet? Well, let's meet somewhere we both know. It could be a space that you and I have connected with in the past, or it can be something like everyone knows the pyramids of Giza or the Eiffel Tower. Let's meet at the base of the Eiffel Tower tonight. And so both of us could project the idea. I could call you tomorrow and say, did we meet at the base of the Eiffel Tower? And we both could say yes. Now, how do we know we weren't just projecting the idea of meeting there and seeing each other? Well, we'll do a little experiments. Like, I will bring something from behind my back and open my hand and show it to you. We'll know if we met in the same place if you can tell me tomorrow what I showed you, and if it was what I projected or what I intended it to be. And definitively that can happen. And there's been many recorded cases of people doing that. So there is a place that we go to, whether that's the collective unconscious or some higher plane or whatever we may call it, where there's the opportunity to connect out of body.
In studying intuition, when I was learning how to hone my intuition, my friend and I would do this. She was across town, and we would send messages to each other and certain things and pick up certain things. So I know exactly what you're talking about. And talking to a neuroscientist on the show and a couple other people, there is this plateau that scientific supports that we are all connected. And I think we lose track of that somehow, that no, it can't be. That's just hooey. I mean, my ex-husband would call Turah hokey land. He would say that, because I think for some, when you can't understand something, you don't want to believe it, and therefore you want to give it a negative connotation.
Totally. Some of my friends would call this woo-woo, dream work and tarot and other things like pseudoscience or, wishful thinking. I think we're entering a renaissance period when it comes to dream work and when it comes to these alternative practices. As we move into a time where waking, rational, scientific methodology has taken us so far and swung the pendulum so far to one side, we're starting to see a swing back, which is to honor these other states of consciousness, to honor these other ways of perceiving and being. And I think that's incredibly important. I think that's important for a couple of different reasons. One, because this is your inner experience. Your inner experience doesn't have to be about consensus reality or truth is proof. This is your sacred own experience. And there's something that's important about honoring that. And secondly, I think these are also very, very practical practices. When we look at dream work and the history of the use of dream work, we see some of the biggest scientific, some of the biggest cultural, some of the biggest artistic influences that have come through Dreamtime that have influenced humanity. We can look at the periodic table of elements or the spiral shape, the double helix shape of DNA. We can look to Paul McCartney's Melody for Yesterday. We can look at Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, all of these different ideas, Salvador Dali's paintings. These things came through people using Dreamtime. Many of Edison's ideas and innovations came to him by using liminal states in Dreamtime. So there's a very practical side to these woo-woo practices, let alone where we're really starting to come into a time and phase where we can use these for creativity. We can use these for role rehearsals. And I've done this quite a bit. I do a lot of public speaking. When I have a big lecture or something that I'm nervous about, I'll use my lucid dreaming, those practices of being aware of dreaming within a dream. And I'll go and give the speech in the room that I know I'm going to give it in, to see, looking at the people who I know are going to be in the room, so that by the time I actually have to give the speech in waking hours, I've done it so many times. It's not a question of if I can do it well. I've done it well. Now, how well can I do it? And we're starting to see Olympic teams that are using lucid dreaming practices for deep embodiment, deep, diving board practice, going through the spins and flips, let alone all these other aspects of creativity, innovation, and personal healing work. And I think that's where we're really starting to open up, as mindful awareness, as mental health comes to the forefront of our more dominant culture, we're starting to look at how can we use, as you mentioned, these limiting beliefs, these stories or narratives that no longer serve us, these things that we've pushed down into our subconscious, into our shadow, that are yearning to be given some conscious attention, that are breaking through in our dream time so that we might give it a little bit of awareness, and we might start to perceive some of these limiting ideas from a new vantage point. And I think on a very meta scale, for the personal healing and the big existential crises we're facing as a civilization, we need dreamers. We need people looking inside, listening to what wants to be expressed, listening to the unique self that is breaking through to solve some of the biggest issues of our day.
Well, something interesting you said about the lucid dreaming, when you think about it, there's a lot of study that says, if you think a thought and then you speak the thought, you bring it into reality. So you're doing the same thing when you're lucid dreaming, are you not? Because you're bringing that thought into a reality. It may not be this tangible reality, but it is a reality.
Totally. When people come to me and want to learn about lucid dreaming, they think that, oh, well, if I can architect or intend the types of dreams I want to have, then I have complete control in a limitless space. And it's not that simple. We can definitely intend to have certain experiences. Many people, they start out, they want to have sensorial experiences. They want to fly. Okay, great. Definitively, most people start out, I'm going to fly in my dreams. I'm going to defy the laws of gravity. And it's an incredible feeling. The experiences you have in lucid dreaming often stay with you for life and are reported to be some of the most profound experiences people have in their entire lived experience. But you are never completely in control. There's always an element of otherness, an element of surprise. And so bringing some intentionality, bringing some attention to these places that we want to go can really open us up to things that we're otherwise afraid of to look at during our waking life, that might be a trigger response for us. If we know we're safe, we're not going to die in dream time, we're not going to lose it in any which way, we can start to look at the things that we may not have time for, or the energy or the capacity to do otherwise. And that opens up a whole new world to us.
It does. Now, I know you've also had this experience. Now, when somebody tells you that, well, my dream, it felt real. It almost felt real. It wasn't like a normal dream. Is there a difference between that type of dream? Is that because you have actually gone into a lucid dream without even realizing it? Or is it because you've connected on a different level in the dream?
Yeah, I wish I could give you a definitive answer on this. Those dreams that feel so real, that emotionally stir you, that really leave a mark on you, these are often called what Carl Jung's called big dreams. They stir you in a way that is so potent that you're forced to just give them attention. There's something there in those dreams that is expressing itself to you. It's much like a nightmare. No one has problems recalling nightmares. We might have problems recalling day-to-day dreams, but nightmares sear themselves into your psyche for a reason. Hey, there's something you need to look at. There's something you're not giving attention to in your waking life that is either hurting you, limiting you, or holding you back in some way. And so when we have these big dreams, whether they're negative or positive, when they really feel so real, that's the time when I tell my students, really pay some attention, really create some space to interpret them, to play with them, to see what wants to come through with them, because there's something stirring. And to get a little bit deeper here, those dreams that feel so real, does it feel real right now? Are you awake or are you dreaming? How do you know? We can get very, very deep down the rabbit's hole here, but who's to say those experiences you have in dream are any less real than the experiences you have at any other point today, or in meditation, or in a psychedelic experience, or while you're on a runner's high? These are all different states of consciousness, and they all have something to teach us if we're willing to open up and listen.
Well, it's like, dare I say, the original movie of The Matrix. By the time if you watch The Matrix, at least for me, when I was done watching it, I sat there for a minute going, how do you know that any of this is real?
Totally. And that it's an often called upon metaphor for a lot of this work. One of the lineages and traditions that I've studied under is Tibetan Buddhist dream yoga. And this practice is thousands of years old. And these Buddhists believe that dream work, particularly lucid dreaming and be bringing conscious awareness to this dream state, is a very important practice. That this is a bit of a dream that we're in our everyday waking reality. And all of this, whether it's waking reality or dream state, is a practice for what's to come next. The dream at the end of time, at the end of your life, when you, as they believe, enter the bardo state, when you're tested in another state of consciousness. Are you going to be sent back into the wheel of karma and samsara, or are you ready to progress, to let go of all of your attachments and cravings and aversions and move on to the next stage of development? So there's many different lineages and traditions around the world that have different beliefs. I think they're all important and they all have something to teach us. But ultimately, they're teaching us about the nature of reality. And the truth is, the nature of your reality, of my reality, of all of our realities, is that every single day we enter a very altered state of consciousness for 2 hours. And what that speaks to is you are far more than your wake-centric perception. You are a person of multiple states of consciousness. How do we honor that? How do we own that? How do we recognize that, yeah, I'm as much an out-of-body experiencer and awareness as I am an in-body experience and awareness? And as we start to draw that into the wholeness of who we are and what we're here to do, it widens your horizons, it widens your perceptions of who you are and what matrix we're playing in.
What made you decide to pursue this?
Yeah, so I studied dream work for most of my adult life. When I was in my early 20s, I was dating a woman whose mom turned out to be one of the world's foremost dream psychologists, and she turned me on to dream work. I didn't know that this was a field of academic study or rigor. And so as I started learning about it, I started just trying to get my hands on everything I could find. And so for the last 20 years, I've really read everything I could, flown around the world to study under teachers and lineages of dream work, and just it's been a passion. And it wasn't until just a few years ago that I really doubled down and started sharing everything I'd learned with the public, with others. And what called me to that was really two things. One, I had been dealing with some trauma that I had in my early life. And I'd worked with therapists and I'd worked with ayahuasca and plant medicines, trying to get to the bottom of what was there and what needed to be transcended. And it wasn't until an ayahuasca ceremony that for 3 nights straight, I just got this download of, hey, it's time to start sharing some of your dream work practice. I didn't know what to do with that. I kind of thought that was me taking the easy way out, not having to look at what was there for me underneath all things. And it wasn't until about 6 months later that I had the most profound dream and the most profound healing experience I'd ever had in my life, where I was able to go back to this trauma that I had when I was an 11-year-old boy and be with this little boy, with my inner self, to tell this little, crying, scared little person that, hey, none of this is your fault. You are loved. Everything is going to be okay. And at the end of that healing experience, I awoke, tears down my eyes, and my entire perception, my entire worldview had shifted in that moment. All this weight that I'd been carrying for all these years was lifted off my shoulders. And it was at that point that I realized, holy cow, dreams can be used for so much more than I've been using them for. That if we have ceremony every single night, and if I know that we can intend to go to these places, I know that we can do much more profound work than creativity and innovation and problem solving, that there's this whole other otherness that can be experienced. And that's when I felt the call to start sharing what I'd learned about dream practice with others. And it's been the most nourishing, rewarding journey of my life to share this and to open people's minds to that whole other world that we go to every single night.
What is your take on a lot of the dream dictionaries, the ones that say this is what a dream means? Because I have a totally different take, but I'm just curious about what you think about that.
Yeah, I always warn people about dream dictionaries. I think they can be useful if they're taken in the right context. And that is, they can open our minds to other ideas. So let's say you have a tiger that shows up in your dream. Okay, well, a tiger could mean this or that. And that can give you other ideas that you hadn't thought about, the symbolism behind a tiger. But I always warn people, don't take anything literally. If dreams were giving you literal information, they would give you literal information. Dreams come in symbolic puzzles so that you can do a little extra work. You can stretch your mind to see things in new ways. And so if a tiger shows up, no one can tell you that means this. Only you know what your dreams can mean. And there's a couple of different ways to look at that. With any symbol, we usually look through 3 different lenses, at least. That's the personal lens. Okay, you might love tigers. You might have stuffed animal tigers in your home. I may have been clawed at by a tiger through a cage at the zoo, and I have a trauma response that comes up. So our personal view of the symbol is going to be very different. Then we can look at a cultural view. What a tiger means in India is very different than what a tiger means in North America. And so we put that cultural lens on, and that will change the way that symbol comes up towards us. And then there's more of a universal lens, which is tigers are orange and black. Everyone agrees on that, sometimes white and black, but essentially more archetypal. And so a dream dictionary can never say this symbol means that. It can give you ideas that you might not have thought of, which are important, because ultimately, I believe dreams are coming to show us something we weren't aware of, to, again, get us to solve and look at things differently with new perspectives. And when we look at things with new perspectives, we can start to create new stories for ourselves. We can start to let go of beliefs that no longer serve us, and we can start to open our minds in new ways. And I think that's ultimately the internal guidance system, the benefit of why dreams come to us.
I agree. I don't disagree on that at all. Have you had experience of precognitive dreams?
I have. And, you spoke of these big dreams that feel so real. For me, precognitive dreams, we always have to be careful with dreams. Sometimes I'll have a dream and, for example, I see a plane go down. Okay, well, I'm supposed to get on a plane to San Francisco next week. Does that mean I definitely shouldn't get on the plane? I always tell people, whoa. Again, if dreams are coming to you literally, they will come to you with very strong messaging. We should always look to the symbolic value of dreams first. But sometimes you get a dream that is so stirring and so crystal clear that you awake and you reckon with it. You need to take some time. And so usually I advise people that you'll know when it's a dream that strong. It will come and stir your soul and move you in such a way that there's no doubt, there's no question. If there's ever a little bit of question, then let's play with it. Let's look at it symbolically. How might a plane be talking about the modes of transportation, the modes of how you're moving through life, rather than literally that plane right on that day? And just to finish on that, precognitive dreams can be life-changing. And there's lots of documented cases of people who have had these very big dreams and altered their situation or their experiences, which have provided, great change, great meaning to them. And so this is part of the act of really listening. As we tune into our dreams, as we practice our own dream work practice, you start to receive information. You start to download every single night. And for the vast majority of time, it's not those big dreams, but every once in a while, you get those huge dreams that can ultimately change the trajectory of your life.
The first precog dream I remember having, I believe I was either 11 or 12, and it was the summer before my 8th grade year. And in 8th grade, I was allowed to be queen of the Epiphany Ball, which I grew up in New Orleans, so we had Mardi Gras, and because I went to Lutheran school, we had an Epiphany Ball. And so I had this dream that summer. This would not be chosen until the following January. I had a dream that summer about me being queen, the dress I would wear, the guy who would be king, and that I did it. And I didn't have this dream once. I had it 3 different times. So it stuck with me. There was no denying it. And sure enough, we roll into January and everything provided itself. And it's just like, okay. And as I'm talking to you, it's funny because I remembered a nightmare I had back. I was a sophomore in high school, so 15. I had this nightmare, and we had watched prom night the night before. So I kept dreaming that this guy was chasing me with a ski mask, and I kept waking up, and I would go back to sleep, and it would be right there. And lo and behold, I pulled the mask off. My grandmother, I went and woke her up, and she grabbed me and scared me even more. So it was a really bad night. And I realize now, as I'm talking to you, this is the next day I met my stepfather for the first time. And now looking back, it's like, I see who the masked man was, even though in the dream it was not. So in a way, it's like, was that precog? Possibly. And I'll say this one other precog thing that you may appreciate. So a month before my husband died, I had a dream that we were in a shopping center and a tornado came by and it picked up the car, and I'm sitting there going, I don't want to die. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. So reality is, and I should say that. So the car landed, I didn't die. We ended up going in an ambulance to a building that had red bricks. And then the dream changed a little bit. But in reality is, I picked my husband up from dialysis. We ended up in a Burger King that was adjoining to the parking lot where we were in the dream. I parked the car because our food had to wait, and he ended up dying in the car. An ambulance came, picked him up. They finally got him back. The ambulance took him to a hospital that had red bricks in the building. It took me about 2 weeks after he died to realize that I had this experience. So precog, and granted, it wasn't the exact same thing, but it was there, and it wasn't, like the nightmare and the queen dream, those were repetitive. I was younger. Now it's like it gets in your face. And I remember waking up just being a little shocked because the dream changed. I didn't actually wake up completely from the dream until later in a more peaceful place, but still.
Yeah. First, let me just honor that and say thank you for sharing that, because these are your personal visions. These are sacred to you, and so thank you for sharing that with me and with the audience here. And a couple of things just to say on that. I mean, the first piece on the recurrent dreams. I mean, much like a nightmare or something that sears itself into your psyche, recurrent dreams are coming for a reason. They're pulling at us. They're saying, hey, there's something you got to look at. Hey, there's something you got to look at. Hey, there's something you got to look at. So these are important dreams to pay attention to. And, dream interpretation is an art. It takes a long time. There's many different views. There's no one right interpretation of any dream. And for the listeners out there, you don't need to know all of the skills and symbology and language of dreams to start playing with them. Even just sharing them with a friend like this. Often friends will ask you questions that you wouldn't ask yourself. And again, that gives you different perspectives. That gives you different vantage points from which to contemplate the dream. So again, thank you for sharing that. And not to dive too much into the recurrent dreams or these nightmares, but like you said, they get in your face. And so oftentimes I find the most transformative work with dream work is when you do a little dream interpretation, because in doing the dream interpretation, people often start to peel back layers that they wouldn't do otherwise. And so even just you sharing, I know you didn't speak the words, but it came through in your voice, some of how those dreams emotionally stir you, what was there, and asking that question to partners, to friends about dreams, how did that dream make you feel? And so we're getting past some of the visual symbolism to a deeper root of what's there for you, what triggered, where else are those types of feelings occurring in your life, what similar types of triggers in your life are causing you to feel this way. How might the symbology and the visions of the dream speak to those types of triggers, and how you can choose an alternative way of not reacting, because reacting is unconscious, reacting is habitual, but how can you respond in those types of moments? And the difference between reaction and response isn't just conscious awareness. It's actually an entire empowerment. When we're reacting, we are not empowered. We have no choice in the matter. And that leaves us in a victim standpoint. Anytime we are reacting, where we don't have empowerment, we don't have choice, we're left without choice. And so there's no way of being empowered. When you start to be able to play with dreams, look from different vantage points, have choices as how might I like to respond to these types of triggers or situations? Well, then the next time those triggers come up in your life, quickly, rather than reacting, you have a moment of pause, a moment of conscious awareness where you can say, all right, I've been here before. I've played this virtual reality game. What could an alternative response look like? And even though it may not be the perfect response, you're at least bringing in a piece of empowerment every time you do that. And what's happening every time you make choices like that, you are becoming more and more empowered. You're becoming less and less a victim to the circumstances or the old narratives in your life. And I think that's what we all want. We all want empowered people around us. We all want people who are bringing their conscious awareness, who are bringing their full potential to every moment in life. And I think, as woo-woo as it sounds, ultimately that's going to solve a lot of the big issues that we individually and as a civilization need to figure out in our lifetimes. How do you bring consciousness and conscious awareness to these big issues? Because that's the only thing that's going to solve our big challenges here.
Yeah. I mean, for me, like when I see a tornado in a dream, especially, the car was, picking up the car went down, we were fine. But when I see a tornado in my dream, even before that incident, I know that you need to pay attention. And it's not that I've ever lived through a tornado, because I haven't, knock on wood, but it's something that you're aware of. And I remember about a month ago, it was my husband's birthday. I was a little stressed. The anxiety was there, and I was having a hard time sleeping. When I finally did sleep, I was having this dream, and he was back by our patio window, and I'm like, we need to get downstairs to the basement. There's a tornado. There's a tornado. We need to go. And he pulled the curtain back, and he just stood there and he looked at me. And the tornadoes moved completely around our house, never landed or anything. And he's like, see, you're okay. It's just like, all right.
Would you be open to playing with some of that symbolism for me, just for an opportunity to share with the audience a little bit about how?
That's why I'm being honest. That's why I'm being honest with you. It's because if somebody can glean something from what I'm talking about or what you're talking about, then that's important. So.
Okay, beautiful. So here's a great way for audience members just to start playing with some of their own dreams and symbolism. So if I asked you to share with me, what is a tornado? Treat me like an alien. I have no prior knowledge. I don't know what this word is. Tell me, what is a tornado?
Chaos. It's organized chaos, because it can suck you up and spit you out and totally destroy your life. Or it can magically lift up and not land on your house. And in all honesty, about 8 years ago, we had a tornado lift up about a mile away. It still damaged some of the house, but it didn't hurt us. So
okay, beautiful. So just to repeat some of that back, some organized chaos could totally destroy your life, can lift things up and put them back down. Now, you said the other piece is wanting to get to the basement. What is a basement?
A basement is supposedly the room in the house that is the safest. But there's a fallacy there, because technically there's nothing there except one small steel beam that's smaller than you are, that's supposed to keep you safe. So it's really a fallacy.
Where is a basement found?
Underground.
Okay. And what is some of the metaphors for underground?
Well, there's bad behavior, there's hiding out, there's things of, I don't want to be seen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, beautiful. And, if this were my dream, if I was thinking about underground, I'd think about what's beneath the surface. What, as you said, hiding underneath, don't want to be seen. What's in our subconscious? What isn't being given the light of day? And so what are we protected? How do we protect ourselves? By jamming things underground. And that's kind of a Jungian, more psychological perspective of things, and not to delve too deep. But so looking at, chaos above, looking at things that you can't control, looking at things that you there's no way for you to deal with head on, looking at how we could retreat underground to those safe spaces, to, like you said, what's under there, what are the bad behaviors, what else is hiding beneath the surface. And then your husband ultimately saying, there's nothing to be afraid of. Let's look, let's face this. And what was there for you? What did that feel like for you when he did that?
There's two caveats here. In real life, years ago, we had a tornado warning, and he went to the front door and opened the door, and I'm like, get down to the basement. So we actually had that years ago. Him in that dream coming to me like he did, to me, it was kind of, because it was his birthday, it was kind of him saying, you're going to be okay. I'm watching out for you. You're going to be okay. Just be better to yourself, be gentler to yourself. Don't get so caught up in the chaos.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So can I ask you, in recognizing that of you're going to be okay, despite the chaos going on around, I'm with you, you're okay. How do you honor that? How do you take that message and integrate that into your waking life? Where has that come up for you or not, that you've been able to practice that message or practice honoring that?
I try to get out of the fearful thinking, because at the time that was a lot of it. The one thing you don't recognize when you're dealing with somebody that's terminally ill is that you live in anxiety. And, he's been gone over a year. And at a certain point, there's a fear that comes in that I think, and I've talked to a couple of people about this, grief is actually harder the second year, because now the reality has sunk in. You've hit all those milestones, those first milestones. Now without a doubt, this is your reality. This person is no longer there. So I try to honor it by not getting caught up in the fear or the sadness of missing him, which, that's always going to be. There's always going to be days where it's worse, and there's going to be days where it's fine. But I try to honor that I will be okay. I will make it through. He said that before he died. He said that, in my dream.
That's beautiful. And there's something there. Well, there's a couple things there. Just honoring the grief, not being in fear. And as well, you said something which really struck a chord, which is that new reality. The second year really makes you recognize a new reality. And, I think that phrase is core to why we do dream work, why anyone should even consider dipping their toe into this practice, which is ultimately, how do you step into new realities continuously? We go into altered states and very different realities, weird, hilarious, bizarre realities every time we have a dream. They're not nice, cut, linear narratives or experiences like we have in waking life. And what does that do for you? What does that trigger every time you're stepping into a new reality? Of course, the unknown can cause fear, or the unknown can cause excitement. There is choice there as to how we look at these things. And so, for me, when I'm sharing with people, when people ask, why should I give any time to my dreams? Aren't they just byproducts of my waking consciousness? Aren't they, just weird, non-important? I say, no, this is an opportunity for one, you to start and end every single day, to bookend your days with a contemplative inner practice. It only takes a couple of minutes, a minute or two before you go to bed, of setting your intentions, even if that's just to recall your dreams in the morning. It can get much deeper and more intricate from there as you practice. These are the types of dreams I want to have, or these are the questions that I want to have answered or have help with, to ultimately waking up and starting your day, writing down your dreams in a dream journal, contemplating what they might possibly mean, even just like laughing at, wow, that was weird. These bookends, this practice of starting and ending your days with inner exploration, with, am I afraid of what's coming, or am I excited to see what's there? How might this help me step into new ways of perceiving? Has a ripple effect throughout your waking day. Because if you start your day, if you set the tone for your day in an explorative, hopefully playful manner, that tone resonates throughout the rest of your day. Okay, what's happening? Yep, there's some chaos here. There's some boredom here. There's some anguish here. There's some fear here. There's some whatever it might be. If it can stay rooted in that resonance of how I started my day, that deep root of, I'm here to explore. I'm here to play. What might this mean to my bigger story? What might this situation, as much as I don't want it, or I'm really attracted to it, how do I take a step back to go, what does this mean in the greater standards of things? Really gives a meta view, an objective standpoint. And again, going back to what we were saying, that little bit of separation, that little bit of objectivity of standing back gives you choice rather than just reacting in the moment. And I think that's kind of the core to a lot of meditation, a lot of mindful awareness. And it's a playful way to be doing the deep inner work in a less serious way than a lot of other tools or traditions do. So for me, that's a beautiful way to help in my own personal evolution.
It's a powerful way. There is one other thing that I would share with you. When my mom, so my mom committed suicide. out there and been known.
I'm
But
sorry. Yeah.
it'll be 30 years next month. But here's the interesting thing. So she committed suicide. She was cremated. I never saw her. Okay. For 3 months consistently, every night that I went to bed, she would come to me and tell me she was not dead. Every night she would come to me and tell me, wait, it gets better. So this continues on. And finally, the very last dream I had with her at the time, she comes to me. She's got my stepdaughter. I wasn't married yet, but she was my stepdaughter. Comes to me with my stepdaughter. She's dressed like she was the day she died, my mom. And she tells me, there's something I have to tell you. This is a month before I'm going to marry my first husband. She's like, there's something I have to tell you. And I'm just like, look, you're dead. Go away. Leave me alone. She's like, no, there's something I got to tell you. Okay. So I once again said, no, you're dead. So she leaves. She won't come to me for a dream until about 2 years later. And then she just sits there in the background with her arms crossed. Now, I'm going to explain something, and that this is the reason why I'm explaining this. So that marriage, I ended up getting married. Leading up to the marriage, the minister didn't have the keys to the office. So he almost didn't marry us. My husband almost didn't make it in. The cake fell. It was like a comedy of errors. And lo and behold, within a year, roughly around that time I had that dream, I would end up leaving him. So when I look back, it's like, I understand my mind initially was processing the fact that I didn't see a body. I get that. That's why she was constantly telling me I'm still alive. And on a certain plane, she was still alive. I get told in readings she is still with me. I understand that. So I understand that plane, that she is still there. I get that. But I think in that moment, she was actually there trying to tell me, hey. And that's why she had the daughter at that point, because she figured, if I have the daughter, you're going to listen to me. Didn't listen. Silly girl. I was, 25, 26 years old. I wasn't going to listen. So I just thought you'd appreciate that, because it's one of those.
Yeah. I mean, I think you hit a couple of pieces there. Like, you're not listening to me. I'm bringing your daughter into this. Now, do I have your attention? Again, dreams will kind of build up. They'll turn up the emotional volume when there's really something to hear. Now, who's to say what exact message, whether your mother was saying, don't marry this person, or if there was something else to look at, that's all to be played with and to be understood. And it's your perspective that matters in all of this. Right. These dreams are for you. And, there's something really important in what you said, in that I'm not dead. I'm with you. Again, this kind of goes back to what we listen to. Oh, is it only the material world? Is it only the rational, scientific, material truth is proof that is important? Or again, what are we listening to? Will we listen to the memories, the energies, the nature, what are we open to listening to? Are we open to listening to these ephemeral states, these altered states of consciousness we go to every night? All of this is an opportunity to expand our horizons, to expand our awareness, to expand our listening. And again, when we listen deeper, when we're open, more will come flooding to us, and that can change our life.
Well, and the intriguing thing is, my husband, who did not believe, I don't want to say he didn't believe, but when I first met him, I read for him and I told him some blonde was going to come into his world and completely turn it upside down. He's like, is that my ex-girlfriend? I'm like, I don't know. So I'm dealing with a skeptic initially. And that Halloween, we were over at a friend's house, mutual friend's house. Him and I were not dating, and we're supposed to be meditating. Well, he's not going to meditate. He decides to sit there and watch me. And apparently he saw my mother superimposed on top of me, sitting on top of me. But yet he's got the audacity to ask, how do you know? Dude, if you're seeing it and you're not on anything, and it's pretty evident.
Well, yeah. And I think that's a really big question. How do you know? Again, what are we going to look to for proving our realities? If it's only what you and I see and can agree upon, then we're limited to our five senses and to this state and plane. Fine. I know, these precognitive dreams, no one else has to experience them. Something's there. How do we prove love? No one else can prove it. I know, it's my experience. And so again, this is just a continuous practice of tuning into, doesn't matter what's out there. It's listening to what's inside. And I think that that's critically important these days, as we're in a time of social media, of podcasts, of everything. We are being streamed information, and particularly curated, consumptive content continuously. That's hijacking our inner visions, our inner listening. Okay, well, my social media will tell me where I'm lacking, what I should be, how life should be, what I should be becoming in my life, what I should do with my energy, rather than what is the truth? Only you know your own truths. Only you can answer the big questions that you have in your own life. So how do you tune into this? Dream work is just a beautiful practice of taking every day, every night, the opportunity to tune in of what personally wants to be expressed through my unique self here. And I think that's ultimately what we want in the world. We want this beautiful mosaic of unique individuals expressing their innate gifts and, imparting that into the commons, imparting that into the world. I don't want, Facebook or anyone else saying this is how people should be, or these advertisers swaying how culture should move. I don't believe that's why we're here. And so this is a great way to tune in.
I have a question for you about people that have problems sleeping a sound sleep at night. And I'm one of them. Occasionally I will hit a sweet spot and I'll sleep just fine. And I've had an extended sleep study where my doctor actually is like, you wake up every 7 minutes. So for me, I think I'm constantly downloading information because I'm a writer as well. And I will write things that I have no idea where I got the inspiration from. Once again, you were talking about the creativity aspect. So how do you get somebody to, I don't want to say shut their mind off, because you want that mind to be able to function on dreaming, but how do you get them to relax enough so they can get into that dream state?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, the first thing is, if these are inner sacred experiences that we're having, we need to honor them as sacred. And to honor them, that means getting good rest. And, the research is unequivocal. Sleep is the best thing we can do for our physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being. There's nothing that comes close. Nutrition, exercise, relationships. Sleep is the foundational root of all of this. So honor your sleep. But to clear your mind, we are in a place where we're all busy, we're all productive, we're all getting blasted, a lot of messaging, there's a lot to process and chew on. Taking a minute or two before bed to clear the radar, to clear our minds. So, just a simple practice of, all right, I'm tuning into my body, I'm tuning into the presence. Whatever happened today, I'm letting that go. I'm releasing with each breath a little bit of, okay, that's the past now. I'm coming into the present. I know I've got 1,000 things to do tomorrow. I'll pick those things up when I wake up. I'm putting those down. I'm letting everything off my shoulders just to be clear right now. That's the time where I often teach students to be intentional. All right, I'm present. My radar is now open. It's cleared of all the other noise. All right, I want to remember my dreams. I want to deeply experience my dreams tonight. I am relaxed. I am open. I am willing to go into that, darkness, that open state. And just that little bit of practice that takes 30 seconds, that takes a minute. It's good to do a little breath work. It's good to calm the physiology down some. But when we do that, that ultimately can just really open us up to the dream time.
Do you recommend, what's your take on phones? I mean, people now, we used to all have the alarm clock by the side of our bed, but now we use our phone. What did you?
Yeah, like any tool or technology can be used for good and bad. I use my phone as my alarm clock. So the phone is in the room with me, but I also know the research on screens. And so, we need to develop, again, honoring our sleep hygiene, honoring our dream time. No screens, 30 minutes, bare minimum, better an hour before bed. How many people can do that? How many people, what am I going to do with my time? I've got all my life, all my connections, all my work on screens. Great. Dim the lights, drink some tea, have some conversations, call someone, but don't be on a screen. That we know that affects our sleep time. We know that affects our melatonin. We know our brains, it stimulates like natural sunlight. So all of that's going to affect our sleep. So, get the screens away from that period of our life. Take that as a one reason to shut it down for a little while. And, I do use screens. Like I set my alarm 4.5 hours after I go to bed every single night. That's part of my dream practice. I set it. I wake up. I intentionally go, why is my alarm going off at this godforsaken hour? Oh, right. It's part of my dream practice. I'm bringing some conscious awareness and some intentionality into my dream time. Often I'm setting my intentions for lucid dreams, and then I go back to bed. So I'm using it as a tool, but I'm not letting it, affect my sleep other than a quick wake. So, like all of these tools, we need to learn to use them responsibly. They are very supportive and very helpful to our lifestyle, very connecting, all of that. But we just need to be mindful with them.
My husband could not understand, and I'm sure you're not going to understand this. For me, in order for me to go to sleep, I'll end up playing Candy Crush before to numb. And here's the thing. Let me explain. For me, it's a matter of mundane thinking. It's to clear everything else out of my head. Otherwise, I will lay in bed and I will start going through and analyzing. And if I wake up in the middle of the night and I actually if I have a really cognitive thought, I'm up for another 2 hours then.
Yeah, it's a good point, and I'll come at it from two different angles. So I'm going to come at it. First of all, it's like, yeah, it can be therapeutic to do something that shuts off the mind or gets you out of the deep thinking process, and that can be cathartic. So I don't want to say that it's not useful. Now, here's the other side of it. I'll come down harshly and saying, what is it that might be helping you escape from? Which is, what would it mean to just say, okay, I'm just going to do a meditative practice for 10 minutes and just try and clear my mind. Well, no, these other thoughts are coming in. These other emotions are getting stirred up. And again, for the same reason that dreams bring things up for us to look at, so do meditative practices of, okay, why are these thoughts coming up? What is there that I really need to give some conscious attention to? And so, I'll catch myself. I'll get a game or something, or a scrolling, as many people do. And what is that a distraction from, rather than tuning in and listening to what wants to emerge? And so it's a balance. And again, just from the standpoint of having our inner visions hijacked, I can tell you, friends have sent me a game. I don't game lots, but I just had a big knee surgery. So I've been in bed 23 hours a day for the last month recovering. And at some point I picked up a game, and I noticed in my dream time, because I'm very connected to my dream time, visions of that game showing up in my dream time again and again. So it was clearly hijacking what wanted to come through. Like, we do process what we spend our waking hours on. I was like, this is not helping me. This is not helping me evolve or do my inner work, because I'm getting, Candy Crush or Tetris, or whatever game is coming up for you, entering that, and it's just not as productive for me. So I'm not saying don't do it. And it's the same thing I say to people. I get a lot of people saying, oh, I smoke marijuana, I use cannabis. We know definitively that slows dream time down. It stops your recall of the dream. It's not that you don't dream, it's that you're not recalling them. That's definitive for most people. I'm not saying don't do these things. I'm saying you gotta learn to use these things responsibly. There's a cost to gaming, to marijuana use, to alcohol. It's at the sacrifice of what yearns to be expressed through you. There's deeper inner visions of who you are coming through. So it's all a balance.
What about melatonin?
I mean, melatonin is something we naturally produce. And so, like anything, these things are scaffolding. If we're really out of whack, like I know shift workers that are trying to get back into a sleep hygiene pattern. Melatonin, first of all, can help with that, but it's effective only for a very, very short time. And then it becomes a bad habitual crutch. And so, I'm very much of the mindset that, like, particularly anything synthesized, you don't want to use unless you have to, unless it's stabilization, unless it's kind of disaster stabilization to get into a pattern, but only for a very, very short time. There are so many plants and teas and natural substances you can use that can help you calm, that can bring down, the very busy chatter, always on mind, that you don't have to rely on a pill or a pharmaceutical for. So I'm very wary of anything like that.
Understand. So if you could tell my listeners anything, what would your advice be?
Yeah, thanks for asking that really big question. And my kind of the ethos as to why I'm sharing dream work and my love and passion and my study of this practice is because I truly believe that, as mental health, as personal well-being comes to the forefront of our dominant culture here, your dreams are trying to guide you to your fullest potential. They're trying to awaken you to where you were unconscious. And so dreams are such a beautiful metaphor of, rather than just the 8 hours of sleep or whatever you get every night being unconscious time, you have the choice to bring conscious awareness to them. And as you bring conscious awareness to the dreams, they help you bring conscious awareness to your perceptions, your stories, your beliefs, your attitudes in life. And the more conscious awareness we can bring, the more practice we give to this. And again, playful practice, fun practice, enjoyable practice to being present, be here now, the better we are able to show up in our waking life. And so my call to action in doing this work is really, all hail the dreamers. We need armies of people who are connected into their inner worlds, to are listening what wants to be expressed through their DNA, through their higher selves, through unique individual selves. That's what we need in the world. And if we're going to tackle the big climate, ecological, capital, democratic, rational, scientific, COVID, all the big issues we face in our lifetime, the answers aren't going to come from good, productive capitalists or entrepreneurs or artists alone. It's going to come through listening to the depths of what wants to emerge, whether that's the collective unconscious, whether that's our higher selves, whether that's source, God, whatever you want to name it. It doesn't matter to me. There's something deeper that wants to be expressed through. And dream work practices are a way to connect in with that in a very beautiful, fun, enjoyable, explorative way. And so to all the dreamers who are listening, one of the things I do is you can sign up for a free 7-day dream recall challenge that I offer. Go to my website, which I can share. You can put in the notes.
Links.
Yeah, and essentially for 7 days, I send you a 5-minute video every day. I give you a couple tips and techniques so that your dream recall comes back. I've had thousands and thousands of people go through this, and within a week, people are dreaming again, even if they haven't been dreaming for 20 or 30 years. And that just gives people a toe dipping in the waters of where this can go. Once you start recognizing this as an important part of your life, you open this world up. And so we need dreamers to dream up the next world we want to live into, to dream up the solutions to our big problems. And so use this opportunity to tap in, because it's far more important than just a fun place to go to every night.
Yes. There is one thing I should have mentioned this earlier, and I just thought about this. Do you have clients that have come to you that are just so stressed out because of their job that they're actually living their job in their dreams?
Totally. And so part of that is it goes very quickly into some depth work of, why are you carrying this? What weight are you carrying? Why is this taking such a dominant role in your psyche? And are you willing for your psyche to be open to more of experiencing life, your selfhood, your relationships? And so usually that comes down to turning inward and looking very practically at why you're carrying so much weight. Why have you put so much of your life into this, this egg in the basket? And so oftentimes as we work through, I work with a lot of corporate clients. I got to say that when I started, I'm a business guy. I've worked in finance and international development in a lot of different worlds. I had a lot of fear about becoming a dream coach. I worried about the judgment of my corporate and business and professional friends going, okay, Cordell's gone off the rails. He's into the woo-woo worlds here. But interestingly enough, some of my best clients have been those people that I feared judgment the most. So as I'm working with a lot of professionals, they come in with issues, with trauma, with carrying big burdens. And very quickly we judo that energy into, great, let's use it to become more creative, more innovative, to be more light in the work that we're doing. Why is this part of your calling in this life? Or maybe it isn't. You're just backed into a limiting belief of who you are, who you should be, and what you should be doing with your time. And so very quickly, you'll get all these different choices and avenues that come up. And that's what's so nourishing about this work, helping people open up and see things differently. And when perspectives shift, when choices shift, all of a sudden you've got all of that energy that was being used to carry or be defensive to this now liberated into creative, innovative ways that nourishes their own soul. So It's beautiful work.
I mean, what you're saying, I agree with wholeheartedly, because there was a time with my last job that I got to a point where I was working even when I was sleeping. And you don't want to face it because the job has become your identity, that maybe this isn't healthy for me. And your soul is trying to tell you, hey, see yourself out of there. But
Yeah.
you're still, no, I need this. And I think that's, especially nowadays, you're seeing more people wake up saying, I don't want the corporate America anymore.
Right.
And I think even Google's CEO today said something of fact, it's going to be a hybrid workplace. You're not going to have the same workplace that we've had in the past.
Yeah. Yeah. All of the Silicon Valley is great for this in some cases, not so much in others, but all of the best cultures that I've seen in corporate world, corporate America, corporate universe around us have been those cultures that nurture
Mhm.
teal organizations, or organizations that blur the lines between professional and personal. Your professional life should only be important to you as it relates to your personal life's mission and work. Why are you here on this planet? If this doesn't fit with that grander meta ethos of what you're doing here, then this isn't going to work for us. If we can find a way to align that, and this being part of who you are to become, part of your becoming, then you're going to sing with passion. You're going to burn with a fire from within that you'll bring to that work. And, for those people who love what they're doing, then this is where I coach them on, great. If this is part of why you're here, let's use that dream time. Let's use those altered states. Let's gain, new perspectives that can help you innovate, that can help bring into the world whatever your energy is trying to do. And that can be profound, hugely, hugely profound. So, whether it's healing or whether it's creativity, there's a lot that is inherent, that can be brought out in the dream world.
Well, it's been a very fascinating conversation. And I thank you for the analyzation, even though you didn't have to, but I thank you. That way people kind of get a feel of what you do.
Hey, well, thank you so much, first of all, for creating this space and holding this space for us. Thank you so much for your personal share, your shares here. And yeah, thank you for doing what you're doing here. I think these types of conversations and these types of openings are important for all of us. So I appreciate this conversation.
Thanks, Cordell. Cordell's conversation was very interesting. I didn't expect to have a dream analysis done, and I think he's right. It's not so much an analysis as it's unpacking and looking at the symbolism and trying to figure out what it means for me personally. And I think that's a real big awakening when you think about it. If you actually can look at your dream and unpack it and see where it fits for you. I mean, I have a friend that I actually talk to occasionally when I have a dream, and it's like, wow. And she's like, oh no, let's go. So we start talking, and he's right. Talking to somebody else gives you a different perspective. It's just like therapy. Talking to somebody can reframe an idea for you. And I do agree that we do need dreamers, whether it's the dreamer that sits here in the desk in the normal daily grind and says, okay, I have this vision, or it's something that comes into you at night. Sometimes when I'm sleeping, I'll wake up with an idea and I have to jot it down. And it's an idea for a story. So listen to your dreams when you can and pay attention, because sometimes when you are just overwhelmed, it's going to come through in your dreams. Like I was talking about, when I see a tornado in my dream, I know what it means. I know that there's chaos around and I have to pay attention. So pay attention to your dreams. And I'm going to say this, if you like the podcast, as always, you know where to find us. It's at thebetter2podcast.com. We have a Facebook page. We have a Twitter account. We have an Instagram account, and you can find those on the better2podcast.com site. If you want to be a guest on the show, please reach out. If you want to leave a comment or a review, you can leave a review on Apple or Podchaser now. We are actually on Podchaser as well, and you can leave a rating as well as a review. And you can watch the videos on YouTube. If you want to see who's talking, then there's a way to put the voice to the face. So I thank you, as always, for tuning in, and I greatly appreciate your time. And I guess I'll catch you next time. Bye. You are listening to the Better 2 podcast with DM Needham.